Hello, and welcome to the Sunday Superversive live stream. I'm here with A.M. Freeman and Nathaniel, brother of Bonnie, who is the subject of the charity anthology. Charity is called Impossible Hope. Nathaniel, how about you carry us along?
Well, just to kind of explain what's going on here, why we are working on getting this anthology off the ground. My sister Bonnie, she's dealt with fairly severe medical issues all her life, and it actually has kind of turned out that earlier ones masked later ones. Uh, we initially thought that a lot of the trouble she was receiving and was bearing the brunt of was coming from just endometriosis, which she does have, and she's had several surgeries to deal with. But we've actually found out for sure and had it diagnosed this past October that she has a congenital defect in her foramen magnum. Basically, that's sort of the bone at the base of your skull that keeps your brain from kind of falling down out of your head. Uh, it's called Chiari malformation, and uh, the way somebody just actually one of her friends described it is almost like she has a sort of a brain mullet, where part of her brain that's near where her spinal cord starts is actually sort of coming out of the bottom of her skull because the hole for that is malformed. Um, she also, unfortunately, on top of that, has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Now, what that uh, it's a connective tissue disorder, and it basically makes the tissue weaker, and it often, results in things like endometriosis, which she does have, and a number of other things. It messes with your how your digestive system works and things like that. But what it's doing for her right now is on top of her brain sort of plugging the hole in the base of her skull and restricting her cerebrospinal fluid movement is the EDS, the Ehlers-Danlos, has made the connective tissue basically holding her spine, like the bones and everything, in the proper position a lot weaker. So it's not. And instead, her vertebrae are kind of falling out of place. And uh, one of her C1, her top vertebrae, the closest one to the actual skull, is actually stabbing into part of her brain as a result of that. Uh, Now, to kind of give you a picture of what this means for her life, uh, she has intense digestive problems. There are very few things she can actually eat because the damage that's been done to her nervous system means that she doesn't have proper peristalsis. And in layman terms, that basically means that the motion that your stomach and intestinal muscles make to push food through and properly digest it isn't really functioning right, and in many cases isn't functioning at all. So she can't digest a lot of things. Also, as a result of the issues with the brainstem, she routinely experiences some degree of loss of limb control. Her legs or her hands often feel numb. She has balance issues. Sometimes if her head is at the wrong angle, she stands a risk of passing out because of the fact that her spine is sort of stabbing into her brainstem. Uh, as you can imagine, all of these are really hard for her to live with and also extremely dangerous for us to do nothing about. And what's happening on March 13th is she's going to Maryland to have surgery to have simultaneously, because doing one aside from the other can also be lethal. Uh, both the foramen magnum repaired and plated so that it's more the right size it should be, and that uh, she can have cerebrospinal fluid flow correctly again. And she's also having a titanium brace fused onto several of her vertebrae in her neck so that they can actually properly support her head. And so she, and so that they can kind of move. the spike on her vertebrae out of her brain material, so that's not stabbing her anymore. While it won't fix everything, and she's going to have a limited range of motion in her neck as a result, and while she already does do this, she's going to have to continue wearing a neck brace anytime out. She's out in a car. I mean, she can't physically drive right now for many reasons, but that part go away won't go away. But hopefully, she'll be able to actually eat more things, able to digest and get herself proper nutrition for more than just juicing. She will hopefully be able to continue doing a lot of the creative things that she does. She's actually a decent well, more than a decent, I'd say, seamstress. She does a lot of craft work and is very talented. And she'd just be able to actually, have the ability to go out and not constantly have to use a walker or a wheelchair to get places because she actually can't leave her house without one of those right now. So that's kind of what we're looking at as far as the medical situation goes.
If you don't mind me summarizing,
Mhm.
so there's a spike. Is that in her spinal column? Is that right?
Uh,
Or
it's one of her vertebrae, the one closest to her skull.
Mhm.
So basically,
Basically, her spine's trying to attack her brain.
Right.
kind of, yeah. That's one way to explain it. And then because of the if that weren't bad enough, that she's also got a deformed hole where her spinal cord goes through that's allowing that to happen and is causing its own compression problems. So
Right.
it's really a 1-2 punch as far as that's concerned.
And then she also has digestive issues. Is that right?
Yes, as a result from that, and
Okay.
things with vision on her hands and feet and legs going numb.
Right. Right.
So
And the surgery would correct this by putting a, well, part cyborg, but putting some metal in between the problem areas where the bone should have been.
uh,
In real basic terms.
yes, the hole in the skull, and then they're basically it'll just be bracing her spinal cord so that it stays where it needs to be and doesn't fall out of line.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I've got a much better picture of it now because even though my sister's quite going to be a doctor, um, I view it more as what I pick and choose to brutally massacre for one of my science fiction stories. Um, all right. So she is this. You said this was congenital.
Yes, it's it's something that actually looking back at her old X-rays uh, might have been caught more sooner if people were directly looking. Well, more sooner. I'm sorry, been caught sooner if people were looking directly for it. But as it stands, both Ehlers-Danlos and Chiari malformation are pretty rare. So we're lucky that it was caught in time because she's nearing the well, technically she's past the lethal danger mark point of when that should be taken care of. So
Hmm.
Yeah. So hopefully this surgery will immensely help her because I can't even imagine having all like the two big parts of your body, your brain and your spine that really take care of a lot of things so out of line and so messed up. So hopefully this surgery can help her live her new cyborg life. And but of course it's going to be very, very expensive, and that's where the anthology comes in.
mhm.
So our Nathaniel approached me like in December around Christmas break with this idea of doing some sort of gift to people who donate to help support Bonnie and pay for the expenses in the surgery. Because right now, um, the estimated cost is going to be $110,000, and that's including traveling all the way to Maryland is where the surgery is happening, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's it's a big chunk of change to help her get back in line and being able to do things and not have to go at 28 years old, have to have someone with you or use a walker to get out of the house. And so what we're doing is the anthology is called Impossible Hope, and it's filled with stories about hope, overcoming really hard situations, because that's exactly where Bonnie is. And so we wanted to put something together to give as a gift to everyone who donates to help, spread the word and get people interested in donating and helping in return for a free anthology. and then hopefully get all that funded, and at the end maybe publish it and have all the proceeds going to research on the two things that Bonnie's dealing with, because like Nathaniel said, it's really rare and doesn't get a lot of attention, but for the people that have it, it's really tough.
Of course, and it sounds like there's some sort of perfect storm going on with other side things. Anyway, uh, not that I know anything about it.
So so far we've got, I think, like 6 or 7 stories, maybe 8. I have them written up with little tagline descriptions to give you an idea of what will be in the anthology so far. And I've also got like 4 or 5 that I'm either deciding on or need to read. One, also including one from John C. Wright, which I need to read over his submission. And so yeah, hopefully it's still open. If anyone has a story, it can be about your life, something you made up. You know, most of these are fiction. There is one that was sent with a that the guy said was based on a true story. So anyway, you could send in any sort of story, any sort of genre, as long as it's a good story and has some sort of uplifting theme or element of someone overcoming something or having hope in a tough situation, or that kind of a superversive kind of thing, but extra focused on like overcoming and hope and things like that. So the end, like I have some blog posts. I'll go ahead and give Ben the link to the official submission call to look at the details. And basically, on there it says March 13th is the deadline, but really, the deadline will close, or the submissions will close as soon as I have enough stories to fill a good sized book. Let me find where I can send Ben this.
Just over Facebook is fine.
Yeah, I had to pull it up. So yeah, that's kind of the basic of the anthology, and Nathaniel's been helping me with that, reading through. I'll have him do all the editing, and if we publish it, and which hopefully that's the plan, once we get enough money for Bonnie, it'll be through Superversive Press. So there's the submission call.
I posted this one already, but I'll repost it for you.
Yeah, you probably put it in the side of the actual, like, the chat video, so anyone listening. Oh, I see it.
The doobly doo.
Sweet. Okay, so did you have anything else to add, Nathaniel?
Aside from a profound thank you to anybody who's already donated and anybody who will donate in the future, it's as a bit of a science fiction and fantasy nerd myself, it's always heartwarming to see people who in the community that have the same interests, using those interests for good and kind of showing people that, the kind of stuff that dreams that are made of, that sci-fi and fantasy authors write about, can, actually fuel practical and good and wholesome things.
Mm-hmm. Right now on the GoFundMe, so the way it works, I forgot to explain this, to help Bonnie and to get the anthology, you go to her GoFundMe and donate any amount of money. We've had people donate $5 or $8. We had one person donate $1,000, which just blows my mind. And right now we're sitting at $2,375 out of $1,000 or $110,000. So it's still wonderful. People have been donating, but hopefully we can spread the word. And that's the biggest thing you can do: spread the word. Even if you can't donate anything, just spread it around. Help other people see it. That'll help us a lot. So to get your story, go to Bonnie's GoFundMe, which I will send to Ben to link, and donate any amount.
I got you.
And you'll enter your email when you donate, and with those emails, we'll have them all gathered up. And once the anthology is done, we'll send them out. And so it'll just be a simple digital file, but it'll have all the stories in it.
I put both the link to her blog and the link to the GoFundMe in the chat if you want to take a look at that. So far, we've got some pretty nice ones: $25, $1,000, $100, $150. It's really nice, and it goes to a good cause, of course.
Mm-hmm. And so so far I'll read through the stories we have. There's some really fun ones. I really enjoy a lot of these. So first one is by Logan Lewis. The tagline is, "Life is hard for a young wife in a quiet mountain village, even before things go terribly wrong." This one's sort of a fantasy setting, and the character resembles Bonnie a lot in that she's got a lot of her own health issues she's struggling with. Um, and it's a pretty neat story. Kind of heart-wrenching. I teared up a little bit when I was reading it, but really good. It's one of the slightly longer ones. I forget how long exactly. Next, we have a story by, let me get this name right, Wolf Dendrick. It's called Bullies and Soggy Soup Bones. The tagline is, "When bullies are trying to ruin a boy's life, he finds inspiration from an unexpected place." So obviously it's about a boy uh, who the big bag bully is beating up on, and it's the story starts out about him trying to wake up and regretting yesterday because he stood up to the bully, and now the bully's gonna want to beat him up. But it's a cute story about him finding his courage from, as I said, an unexpected place. It's pretty sweet. I can copy these over, and Ben can post them in the chat so you can read them along with me. Excuse any spelling
Go
errors.
for
I haven't polished it yet.
it. I actually have a short story. I wrote like 9,000 words over the week, and hopefully I'm just going to copy and paste these one at a time. I will have it edited for you to take a look at Monday.
Excellent. Excellent. That's fantastic. It's been interesting. I love doing this project. Nathaniel thanks me constantly, but I honestly love being able to help and organize this. But I've also got my secret project I'm working on. And so I've got two main projects I'm flipping back before. So if it takes a minute for me to get back to you, no, I will eventually. For anyone that's submitting. Okay, so the next story is how do you say that one? Glaspertone Abbey by Josh Griffing.
Glastonbury.
Yeah. Tagline is, "An old knight's heart, riddled with pain and regret, finds peace." This one's a short, sweet one. It's pretty good. Next is Shoulders of Giants by Dave Higgins. Tagline is, "It's the end of the world as we know it. Or is it?" Some of them have kind of a sci-fi. Some of them have, do any of them have fantasy? Yeah, some of them have fantasy. Some of them are real life sort of settings. Take My Breath Away. This is one that was apparently based on a true story. It was pretty intense because it's written. I don't think I've really read any other stories like this, but it was written in, I think, first person, where it feels like you're looking through his eyes as these events happen, and it's very kind of short into the sentencing. Everything's very kind of short and pointed, but it's really neat. I think it has a good effect, and it's called "Take My Breath Away" by Sam M. Phillips. And next is "The Switchman's Lantern" by James Pilas. I think that's how you say his name. I'm really, really bad at reading names. This one's also a nice, sweet one. The tagline is, "A quiet man with a simple yet important life finds closure from loved ones past and kindles a spark to keep fighting the good fight." And last one is "Battle Buddy" by Tom Wrongby. I'm glad you're posting these in the chat because I cannot say these names very well. And the tagline is, "A woman prepares for what she thinks is a very special day, only to be interrupted by an old friend who might have come at just the right time." The tagline for the last one was hard to write because I really don't want to give anything away. As it was like at the end of the story that I realized what was actually going on. And that's also a really good one about um, finding hope or continuing on even when you think there's not much point. So those are the stories. Um, we have more coming in, and I'm excited. I hope that everyone that donates really enjoys them, that, even if they're like happy or having a bad day, it'll give them some sort of spark, something to think about, something to enjoy. And then Bonnie will also be able to enjoy her new cyborg life. We should run that as that's the new campaign heading. Let Bonnie enjoy her cyborg life.
Hey, if I wasn't employed, that would convince me in an instant. It's better than some of these people sometimes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically it. That's our project we're working on. So yeah. Ta-da.
All right. Well then, let's bring this back to Nathaniel. So it's how long have you guys known that it's been a problem? Out of curiosity.
Well, we actually had it officially diagnosed in October of this past year. So, as far as actually knowing what the issue is, uh, it's not been terribly long. And, well, it sunk in pretty hard and fast because it's pretty serious. We didn't know the full scope of it. We knew there were symptoms. We knew that sometimes she had trouble swallowing. We knew that sometimes her hands would go numb, etc. But because of all the trouble she'd had from endometriosis previously, like she had to have all her reproductive equipment removed due to that, and a number of other things. Which, if you're not familiar with how hormones work in the female body, when that happens, especially at the age it did for her, it essentially kind of kickstarts you into menopause, and then it doesn't really ever go away. So a lot of the issues that we were seeing, especially the digestive ones and things like that, we were figuring, well, maybe when things had to be removed due to the multiple surgeries she's had, maybe the endometriosis kind of caused scarring damage and a lot of things. Uh, we were all figuring that it was things along those lines, and things kept getting worse and worse. And finally, when she took a closer look into it, because through a lot of this, she's kind of had to be her own patient advocate. Uh, she actually thought about the possibility for this, had it checked, and then found out that it was indeed the case that something was actually very wrong with her spinal cord and essentially her brain case. So uh, it's been a very long and painful journey. When I mentioned previous surgeries, as far if we're talking surgical debt, this is it's the heaviest one, but there have been similar mountains in the past that she and her husband, I mean, obviously with not even necessarily material support, but with the help and prayers of her family, uh, she's had to crawl out from under uh, already. So just simply the fact that this time it was so big that she needed help, that she and her husband needed to actually reach out, uh, is a testament to how intense this is for them. Just because before uh, they, did go into heavy debt for all this, but now it's to the point where they really don't have any other choice but to throw themselves on the mercy of their fellow men.
Of course.
So thank you for having us on, Ben, to help promote it. And I hope everyone that listens at least shares some of the links or spreads the word, maybe donates. If you have more questions or if you want to submit something, you can email me at impossiblehope for you with the number 4 and the letter U at gmail.com.
Okay. I put that in the chat. Um,
Excellent.
all right. Well,
Thank you for Nathaniel for coming on. I could not have talked as well about what exactly is going on. I even am more enlightened by the intensity of what's happening in her spine and brain.
Yeah. No, I thank you both for allowing me to do that, and the fact that people are even Well, I'm even in the situation where I can do that, and that I know people and have been introduced to people who are willing to help in such a way. We're all. I know Bonnie herself is just absolutely flabbergasted every time I tell her, "Hey, we got a new donation in," or anything to that effect. She's just amazed that this is even happening. So we're all immensely grateful.
Our prayers are with her.
Of course. Hope that her religious community is coming around her as well, as her
And
family and friends are.
they definitely are.
Excellent. All right. Well, I can't really think of anything else to talk about.
Yeah, that about wraps it up. I have other projects, but those can be saved for another time.
Absolutely. Nathaniel, do you have any last words for us?
Aside from a heartfelt thank you, I don't really have anything else to add.
Fantastic. Hope everything goes well for you, your family, for Bonnie, and that as much as met as is possible. And I hope that April looks forward to the short story that I'm writing to submit to the
I
anthology.
do.
Um, yeah, so short and sweet. I hope everyone checks out the links I put in the chat and sees, there's a lot of great stories that I've talked about. And I hope you take a look at it and support it with your hard earned money. It's definitely going to go to a good cause. Have a great evening, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow with a special interview with Ben Stevens.